Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Hot Pursuit podcast brought to you by LeadPost, the retargeting platform that helps you increase revenue and improve marketing ROI by identifying your website visitors who don't convert. Learn more at leadpost.com. Today, we are joined by Jeff Greenfield, the co-founder and CEO of Provalytics, and we are going to talk about cookies, and not the kind that my kids sneak and go eat in large amounts in the closet, but the less interesting kind to at least to my kids. Third-party cookies, and what's going to happen with them? We'll see. We'll see what Jeff has to say. Jeff, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Roy. And I would say that cookies, the type we're going to talk about, they're just as tasty, especially to us marketers. Third-party cookies did start this whole digital revolution, which is right now in the midst of a major shift, a major change, a paradigm shift, if you will, as a result of the changes that are coming about. So I would say they're just as tasty as the ones your kids like.
It's true. And I'll tell you, I love them because I am trying to lose a little weight and they have no calories, which is, I find that to be a great selling point. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, Jeff, and your background?
Sure. My background, I originally started on the brand side and then got into just as the digital revolution was started working more on the agency side and realized there was this issue that we had, which was overcounting. It was very difficult to determine what was working, what wasn't working. And for some of my earlier clients, we'd have a scenario where, say, they had 100 orders in a day. And when I would go to the different platforms and add it all up, it would show that we had 800 orders. And then I found out that, back in the day, we used to say that every order, there were like 5 or 6 mothers or fathers who were claiming that was my child. Everybody wanted credit for every single order or every single lead that came in. And I realized we needed a way to deduplicate, to determine who was actually responsible for this. And that led into the development of one of the first multi-touch attribution platforms that I built out starting in 2008 called C3 Metrics. I led that company, scaled it up, exited in 2019, thinking I would never go back to measurement. My clients were all set. Everybody was happy. And then all of a sudden, a couple of years ago, the bottom dropped out in measurement. We had these shifts in iOS that everyone is familiar about. We may talk a little bit about that. And then this announcement that Google was going to get rid of third-party cookies in the Chrome browser, which was going to be this major shift for all of advertising technology. And I realized that I needed to get back into this and that there was an opportunity to kind of pan the camera further back and take a broader perspective look at measurement as a whole. And that led to the development of Provalytics, which I developed over 2 years ago. I've been leading now.
So it's safe to say that you understand the technical side of this and the marketing side. And the first question that I think a lot of people have is, what is going to change and when is it going to change? Because we keep hearing that they're going away, and so far they seem to be sticking around.
Yeah, that does seem to be the game that's being played. But what's important to mention is that cookies did go away, and they've been gone for a long time in Safari. So if you're targeting folks that are using iPhones, chances are you haven't been targeting them that well, because what you've been utilizing really has not been working for a number of years now. So what you've experienced there, but what's happened is a lot of marketers just said, hey, there's a lot more people that are using Android and using desktop. So we'll just shift over here. So it's kind of a game, a little bit of whack-a-mole. So what's going to happen when this train eventually leaves the station? And the reason that it keeps kind of pulling out of the station and pulling back in is because the solutions out there, folks are not quite ready yet. And even though Google has been giving long enough warnings that this is going to happen, we now have all these other privacy regulations in the US, a different one in pretty much every state. And also, you've also got the beginnings of what we call walled gardens. You could say Facebook is a walled garden. You put information in, but it doesn't come out, and you can't use Facebook data to then go buy other similar type people and other platforms like Walmart. And so they're kind of their own entity. And the only person that's not really that right now, who's a big player, is Google. So there is an advantage for Google to put these walls up, if you will, and under the guise of privacy. So what's going to change is how you buy and how you measure. Because up to this point, and prior to the changes in Safari, the real exciting thing about digital advertising is that we've been able to target at a very granular level. So if you think before digital advertising, what did we do? We bought TV ads, and we could buy them based upon a location. Hey, I want to buy TV ads in Charleston, South Carolina, or Jacksonville, Florida. And I want to buy Fantasy Island because I'm targeting folks that are 55 plus, let's say. Or maybe I'm going to buy a cooking show because I'm targeting women. And that was pretty much it. You could buy radio as well and target pretty much the same way. But when digital started, it was like unbelievable because you could target people who had come to your website who had not purchased with behavioral retargeting. And then when Facebook started to grow up, my God, you could target Ford F-150 owners who were leaseholders whose lease was going to expire in 3 months. But the issue with all this targeting is first you have the cost of the ad itself. And every time you layer on a piece of targeting, it increased the cost of the ad delivery because there's data that has to go into it. And so what ended up occurring for most marketers is that we have a whole generation of digital marketers who believe that the way advertising works is to be hyper-targeted. But the reality is that since the cost of advertising being delivered to that hyper-targeted audience is so expensive, yes, we get customers, but in many instances, they are not profitable to the company. And the other thing that happens is that as we begin to hyper-target, our sales funnel is no longer a funnel. We're down at the bottom. We're at the spigot down at the bottom. So
a little straw.
The little straw at the end, that's it. So as a result, we're never filling our funnel. We never get to take advantage of building awareness. And so this whole generation of digital marketers believes that we invest money into marketing to buy clicks, which drive sales. We have forgotten the fundamentals of advertising, which is we invest money to buy impressions, which are eyeballs. And we do that to build awareness. And it's through awareness that people say, hey, I want to go check out that store, whether it's at the mall or regular retail or online. And online, that leads to clicks, and that eventually leads to sales. So we forgot this concept of reach, because when you hyper-target, you decrease the number of eyeballs, which increase the cost of advertising, which inevitably decreases the advertising effectiveness. So that and what's now happened over time because of privacy, those segments of those Ford F-150 buyers in Facebook, those are gone. In fact, anyone who is buying a lot on Facebook has noticed over the last 18 months, at least once a month, they get a notice across the top when they log in, a banner that says some of your campaigns are no longer, you can't make any changes to them because those segments are no longer available. So when your budget runs out, that's it. And that's been happening slowly but surely. It's almost as though the camera is being panned back and we are now being forced to buy very similar to how we bought before there was digital. But we have been hyper-focused on measuring based on clicks and based on user behavior. So in the early digital age where we could focus on hyper-targeting and marketing to users, individuals, and we were measuring individuals, we're now having to buy groups, which means our measurement is out of sync because we're still focused on users and their clicks. And so we have some major discrepancies that need to be corrected across any digital advertiser that's out there. So those are the two big areas. How you buy and how you measure are going to dramatically shift when cookies eventually go away.
So in some ways, marketers are going to have to go back to basics. But it sounds like it's not all, going to be kind of Stone Age marketing tactics and analytics. Talk to me about what are some of our options now to continue to get the kind of ROI that clients and brands are looking for when we have that new kind of wrinkle making it more difficult to attribute where our sales are coming from.
Great question. And I would say that what we need to do is we need to take a lesson from what some of the largest brands in the world are doing. And what they've done is they have shifted a lot of their lower funnel direct marketing, you could call them performance dollars, and they have moved them to branding. Now, branding is a very scary thing to a lot of digital performance marketers because branding means, well, I can't connect that to dollars. The reality is you can, but you need to be able to go back to what we talked about before. We're not buying clicks, we're buying impressions. And so the one thing that any marketer can do and should do is that Google sheet that they keep. You know, the one that tracks every single day. It's probably been alive for like the last 3 or 4 years. You inherited from the person whose job you took over. And in there is clicks, cost, every platform, your CPC cost, your click-through rate, and your overall blended CPA or ROAS number. I would tell every single person who's listening right now, bring up that sheet, and at the top of that sheet, add an extra column and call it impressions. And what I would say is for at least the last year, go back and look up the total impressions for every single day across all your platforms. Yeah, I know it's a lot of work, but the reality is you need to start looking at trends over time versus click to sale, because we're forgetting about there's 2 aspects to advertising and marketing. First is what's called the immediate impact. You run an ad in the paper and it has a coupon in there, and people are going to tear up that coupon. They're going to show up at my ice cream shop on Saturday, and they're going to show up and they're going to get their discount for my ice cream cone. Okay. And I know if I run that ad on Friday, Saturday, I'm going to be bombarded with tons of that. Well, that same coupon will probably show up for the next 3 or 4 months of people slowly but surely walking in, and people will be talking about it as well for weeks or months, even years. That is called the kind of the long-term impact of advertising. The scientific term for it is advertising ad stock. And I recommend that every marketer who's listening, they should Google that term and read the very extensive Wikipedia article about it. And that talks about the long-term lagged impact from advertising. There was and most of it in there will talk about the power of TV. Now, to most digital marketers, like TV, that's like old school. Well, it's the same impact from CTV. CTV is just digital television, if you will. But there was a study that was done many years ago showing the impact of ad stock with digital advertising, and that came about as a result of a homepage takeover that Quaker Oats did many years ago for Yahoo. Back in the day when Yahoo was the #1 visited site, the Yahoo homepage was the #1 visited page. And back then it was really cool because these studies, Yahoo also had the #1 search engine. So homepage takeover, which you don't even see that often anymore, you would go to the Yahoo homepage to check things out, and there'd be this huge banner taking over the whole page. It would be for Quaker Oats. So of course, that day, clicks to the Quaker Oats page went up like crazy, and searches in the Yahoo search engine for Quaker Oats and a healthy breakfast cereal went up like crazy. So we would expect then the next day when the ad was not running that everything should return to normal. But it did not. It declined, but it did not get down to the original volume, both in terms of search and the Yahoo search engine, and in terms of the Quaker Oats homepage, till about 14 days later. So it kind of trailed off. So that's that lagged long-term impact from advertising. This is something that with statistics and with math can be measured. So when you think about it, you want to be buying stuff that's got this kind of long-term lag and impact. Those tend to be things that are more upper funnel because it's going to have more of a long-term effect. It's kind of like, buy one, get one free type of thing. That's what upper funnel is. It has this really nice push along with it. So I would say that in order to get into that mindset as a marketer, you need to start shifting your views and your thoughts towards this concept of impressions. Now, I know to a lot of marketers, you're like, oh no, he's going to talk about view through. View throughs suck, man. And it's like, listen, I know everyone's been screwed to a certain extent with view throughs. They're tough to count on. You have to trust the platform. Totally get that. And I'm not saying that whatsoever. I'm saying track your impressions, because what you will find is that if you do something that's different and all of a sudden impressions go up, you may not see sales or leads or some sort of high value action go up that day. But 7-10 days later, you may see, oh my God, what's going on? Why did we have all these email signups? What happened today? Stop thinking in terms of what happened today and start thinking in terms of trends by panning that camera a little further back. That's what I would say.
It's interesting that a lot of people have a sense of security that they can, a lot of times it's that last click attribution, and they say, oh, okay, I know that this sale came from this ad, but really these things you're talking about, they have an impact even now, where you may make the sale today, but a retargeting ad or a banner ad that you've been running, that has some impact too. So even with even while we still have third-party cookies, it makes sense to start thinking this way and to understand kind of the full impact of all of your marketing efforts.
No, absolutely. And the key with last click, and most marketers you shouldn't feel bad if you're on last click and you know it's wrong, because it's one thing that you can at least rely upon. Sometimes knowing that something's wrong is better than not knowing anything at all. Because what I can tell you is that some of the largest brands in the world, like the top 10 brands, you could pick out the top 10 spenders in the US, and I will guarantee you they're on last click too, because their media mixes are just so difficult to even comprehend. They're usually working across multiple countries. Even though it's wrong, they at least know it's consistent. And the key with better measurement, and also to understand, even though the models that we build out in our platform of Provalytics has all the statistical backing, it's an award-winning model, it's a unique approach, it works, it's great, it's been tested, and we validated, and all of those things, it's still a model. And it's still, we're using math to try to discern relationships that help us understand how human beings are impacted by advertising messages. And we really don't know that unless we get inside somebody's head. So there's a saying in this world, which is all models are wrong, some are useful. That's a very popular one. What I prefer is my focus for our clients at Provalytics is I want them to be less wrong today than they were yesterday. Because you're not striving for perfection here, because you can never be perfect. You can never fully understand what it is that's driving absolute behavior here. But at least we want to be less wrong. And I can guarantee you that moving to a more full funnel model that looks at things on an impression basis versus last click will definitely be less wrong. It'll be beyond less wrong. It'll be a lot less wrong. Let's put it that way. For some reason or another, the fear is still alive in people. Thank goodness, because that will get folks to the point of starting to make some changes. And since the impact is going to be both on the targeting and both on the measurement side, and since the impact is also having an effect across multiple publicly traded companies, because remember the Criteos, the Trade Desk of the world, what's occurred is something unique. Typically, advertising technology stories stay within the ad tech world. They don't make their way out. This one, because it can have such a major financial impact on these other companies, it has made its way to articles in the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times. So what's occurred across some of our clients is that board members who are not technical people, they're not ad tech people, they're business people, have brought up in board meetings asking the CEO, is there an impact to our business? Is this something we need to be aware of? And the CEO rightfully says, I'm going to ask the CMO that. And our CMOs, and I'll mention this for any CMOs and marketers that are listening, when your CEO comes to you and says, is there going to be an impact from this cookie issue? The worst thing you can say is, no, I have it all handled. That is wrong to say that, because this is such a major impact to the industry that it will give you license to set a new initiative within your organization. And smart CMOs and smart marketers and smart people and organizations, when you can start an initiative of your own, you're going to have a lasting impact to that organization. So this is going to require a change of how you target, and it's going to require a change of how you measure. And that's going to require more than anything else, time to train your organization, but it also an investment in terms of money to make sure, are we collecting all the proper first-party data that we need in order that we can push back to the platform so we can target appropriately? And do we have the right type of platform in place to make sure that we're measuring appropriately? So the correct answer is, I will get back to you on that. There will be an impact. I'm working on an initiative for our organization.
Well, so can you talk to us a little bit about Provalytics and how that works and fits into this attribution model discussion?
Yeah. So back before all of this cookie mess and as digital marketing was starting to take off and third-party cookies were all out there, we could collect 100% of data. And what I mean by that is we could capture every single click and track it back to where the click came from. And we could capture every impression. We could tell when you saw an ad, when you were exposed to it, and when you actually viewed it. And we collected all of this data, hundreds of billions of data points every month. And then with machine learning, we're able to figure out how much credit each touch point could get. That was the birth of multi-touch attribution in the late 2008, 2009. Fast forward now to where all of a sudden there's a bunch of digital marketing where there's not even clicks. Think about podcast advertising. There's nothing to click on. CTV, nothing to click on. Digital out of home, nothing to click on. So now we're in this new era and we cannot connect impressions to clicks because of these walled gardens like Facebook, which doesn't allow us to put any tags there. So we needed to find a way. So when you think about it, multi-touch attribution collected user level data, but it was aggregated up to daily data so that marketers could then make actionable decisions. Now, before digital marketing, we used a technique called marketing mix modeling. Marketing mix modeling is what brands still use to this day to set budgets, but it's like a project, and it's usually only done once a year. You have to collect 3 years worth of weekly data, and it's a lot of math, a lot of human intervention to work on this math. And the output is spend 3% more in digital, or it could even go down and say spend 3% more in search. Well, if I'm a search marketer telling me to spend 3% more, I would say, what campaign, what ad group, what keyword? 3% more doesn't mean anything. Should I trust the platform? What am I going to do with 3%? At least give me some more guidance. That's why multi-touch attribution took off. But since multi-touch attribution is going away, We looked to find a place in the middle. So we wanted to be able to take in daily data because that's what marketers need in order to optimize, but it needed to be non-PII data, stuff that you could get from the platforms, data that did not connect to individuals so that we wouldn't have any issues with any privacy laws in the currently that are going on right now or in the future. And so what we're able to do is we're able to take in this daily aggregated data. We don't need 3 years worth of data, but we're able to go backwards and then utilizing math. And what's interesting is the math that we're utilizing is we're going back to the future. Our base of what we use is something called Bayesian. Bayesian was developed in the 1700s, but is the basis of all of the AI growth, the self-driving cars, because the formula works very similar to the way human beings think. And then we use a technique that was developed in the 1960s. Now, this math we could have done 10 years ago, but to analyze a week's worth of data would have taken us 3 years because it's a lot of calculations. But because of how fast computer cycles are now, we're able to take a month's worth of data and analyze it in just a couple of hours, which is really amazing. So we're able to take in non-user level data, no PII, but give the exact same output that you get with multi-touch attribution. So we don't say to a search marketer, spend 3% more in search. We tell them to optimize their budget at this campaign ad group keyword level. Wherever you're used to optimizing, that's where Provalytics tells you to optimize. And it works across both digital and traditional media. So we do everything from traditional television, out of home, CTV, and our focus tends to be upper funnel because most marketers come to us because they want to get rid of that, stop spending money at that nozzle, the straw at the bottom of the funnel. They know that there's value in the upper funnel, but they can't prove it to the CFO. So they bring us in to be able to demonstrate that the upper funnel is driving value, and that enables them to optimize their budget and then eventually go in and get a higher budget, which is what all marketers want.
So tell us a little bit more about what the implementation looks like.
That's a great question. The implementation is very, very straightforward. There's 3 data sources that we need, and none of them are really linked to each other through cookies. The first is to determine what level do you want to optimize at? What level are your agencies optimizing at? Most of our clients are larger enterprise, and so most of them have multiple agencies. So we sit with each agency to determine where do they want to optimize at? Where do they make decisions at? And then they send us files in, flat files, that give us how much they spent, how many impressions there were, how many clicks there were, and that granularity. Very similar to that Google sheet that most marketers have on their computer right now. So that just a little bit more detail. We get it from the partners. So that's the stimulus, if you will. And when you think about the world of, let's say, e-commerce or anyone with a website, that stimulus goes out where it builds awareness, and then people want to check out our store. So the first kind of indication that media is doing its job is we look to get a file that shows us how many unique visitors come to the website every day. And guess what? Most marketers have that as well, also sitting on that Google sheet, just on another tab over. So that's just a 2-column file of the date and how many visitors there were. And then sometimes for clients, there's vanity metrics like engaged visitors or things like add to cart in the case of e-commerce. And then there's another set of files, which are conversions. What are the events that you want to measure? Orders, revenue. For some of our clients, it's online orders, online revenue, and then it's in-store orders and in-store revenue. For our clients in the pharmaceutical industry, it's how many prescriptions were written each day. So we're not bound by the ability to connect directly via cookies. We can do all sorts of interesting types of conversion events. If you believe there's a relationship between the marketing that you're putting out there and that end KPI or that end conversion event, our platform will find it and measure it.
And is the enterprise focus primarily because of price, or is it because they're the ones who are going to have the amount of data necessary for this kind of modeling to be accurate?
That's a great question. The focus on enterprise has been because most of their problems tend to arise as they start to move into multiple marketing channels. So if you're a small to medium-sized marketer and you're spending 90% of your dollars on Facebook and just a little bit on Google, I would trust Facebook. That's what I would do. I wouldn't look at Google Analytics. I would be looking at Facebook. The problems start to arise when you start to spend like half your money on Google and then maybe 25% in Criteo for retargeting. And now you're testing some CTV. So once you get into 4 or 5 different platforms, that's where you start to get like that original problem I talked about, 4 or 5 different mothers all claiming credit for the same order, essentially. Uh, what we find is most enterprise marketers are spending across multiple channels at pretty good rates. Smaller marketers tend to be just in one main channel, and they tend to kind of dabble a little bit. But it can also work for smaller marketers as well too. But also price wise as well, it tends to make most sense. And most of the larger enterprise marketers, the return they get from the platform is ridiculous in terms of ROI. So when you're spending large amounts of money, the return you're going to get from this is going to be amazing.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here, Jeff. Can you tell people where they can follow you and learn more about Provalytics?
Yeah, absolutely. You can always engage and check me out on LinkedIn. You can go to provalytics.com. I'll also mention, Roy, that as we talked about earlier, this is this time of transition and paradigm for most of the folks in the industry, especially for those digital natives that they've only worked in digital marketing, because we are moving to that time of kind of back to the future where measurement and targeting is going to be like the way it was before digital. We've put together a course, an attribution certification course that does a really good job of very quickly setting a nice foundation for folks. It's no cost at all. You can go to provalytics.com. You'll see the link there for attribution certification. Click on it. Take you about an hour and a half. You'll learn really cool things too. You'll learn about, I'll give you a little tidbit. Every digital marketer knows what a UTM is. Very few people know what UTM stands for. UTM stands for Urchin Tracking Module. Urchin was the name of the company that Google acquired that eventually became Google Analytics. And that's how you would tag things back in the day with UTMs. And they just kept it because it was part of the base code. So that's where UTM came from. So we talk about that. We talk about the whole birth of this. And it very quickly does a very good job of getting folks up to speed on where they need to be. And at the end of it, you get a great certificate to put on your LinkedIn as well, too. So you can get all that and learn more about Provalytics at provalytics.com.
Awesome. And we will include those links also so
Awesome.
everybody can get those. Well, thank you again. That was really very informative. And I hope that everybody will be able to rest a little easier knowing that they've got some insight to be prepared for the eventual elimination of cookies.
Awesome, Roy. Thank you so much.